Míl mágad a caithfearlaí agus ara banna ceist le cuasaí Oileánda agus go háirid an policy don na hOileáin atá bartaí le fada an lá. Tá mé géirí ústáta a fháil maidir le stádas an policy sin an bhfuil an direct policy agat agus cén uair a bhés an policy é héad fáiltí. Tá muid ag fannach le fada an lá. Gur magad.
As the Deputy will be aware, the Government is committed to publishing a 10-year policy on island development with associated 3-year action plans. Indeed, the programme for Government includes a commitment in this regard, and as Minister with responsibility for the islands, I am determined to ensure the policy is delivered. I have received an initial working draft of the policy which sets out the context for the policy and defines strategic objectives. I will be meeting with my officials in the coming days to review the overall direction of the policy and discuss the next steps and timeline for completion. The Government's ambition for a national policy and action plan for the islands was set out in Chapter 10 of Our Rural Future, the Action Plan for Rural Development 2021 to 2025, published in 2021. The Deputy will be aware that an extensive consultation process has been completed by my department, including meetings with island communities and relevant government departments and agencies. The feedback from this consultation process provided a valuable insight into the key priorities and indeed challenges and opportunities for our island communities. An interdepartmental committee for the islands was also established, and its most recent meeting was held on the 22nd of June, where it was agreed that committee members would review their department's draft input and revert with revised actions. I understand the Interdepartmental Committee is scheduled to meet again in October, where members will be able to share their feedback, observations and recommendations regarding the initial draft of the policy. I expect the policy and action plan to be finalised between now and the end of the year. So it's a long time in the making, but it's nearly there, Deputy, and I'm glad. And I was glad I was able to go out to the annual AGM of Pobail in Naherin. I was in Aire, and I got a chance to talk to the representative groups that were there from islands all around the country. So as I said, it's 26 years in the making, and it's nearly there.
Well, I welcome your determination, Minister, and I welcome the fact that you now have an initial working draft of a policy that we've long waited for, and you're giving us a publication date before the end of this year. I'll be holding you to that. Yeah. So you can imagine I take a very cynical attitude given the background here, and there has been no policy for the islands. We've had interdepartmental workforces come back to '96, and all of the time we have had no development in relation to policy. By contrast, the islands in Scotland have a comprehensive policy based on legislation, and their population is increasing. The opposite is in question here. So in relation to your working draft, can you tell us what issues have been identified, given that we've been inundated with issues from the islands, given that they're working in a vacuum, and so we have the constant representations about the cave in Inisheer, cave in Inishman. We have the debacle over the leader payment, which I understand Deputy O'Queeve will be raising later, where the islands have asked that they be treated as one region for the purposes of leader. So, and of course housing, all of the time coming up in a vacuum with no policy. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I haven't actually, I'll go through this document, I haven't read it yet, but I was at the meeting, the AGM, and it's very clear to me the issues around islands. The issue is of the need to attract young people back onto the islands. Planning permission is huge, absolutely huge, and they're concerned that they can't get planning for young people to return. In fact, I was given one specific example of a young man was coming back from America, and he couldn't get planning permission to build a house on the island. And I do understand too that there are environmental issues, there's no doubt about that, but I can't see why we can't address these things, because what make islands are people, young people. They're looking at issues around schools and additional funding for teachers who work on the islands. I said I'd raise that with Minister Foley. But I think the point here is that this island policy means I have to hold other departments to account. and I want to make sure that I get strong commitments from each department, whether it's across the board as to how we can improve the situation on Ireland. So there's no point in having a policy except to have the strong commitments, and then I have to keep their toes to the fire to make sure they deliver on these commitments. So we're working with them on that. On that particular issue, to get those, to get the policy finished and get the commitments from all the different departments.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you. And you visited the islands and you're aware of the issues. My question is, are those issues reflected in the draft report that's before you? That's what's very important. And in relation to the ongoing issues, I look on the islands as we can learn from them. They have survived, they've shown us a sustainable way of living, and each government, not just this government, has utterly failed to deal with the islands in a just, equal way with a comprehensive report based on legislation. So housing is a major issue on all of the islands, and particularly the Aire Islands and Inishbofin. In relation to that, we have problems with lack of health centres, and then we have problems, ongoing problems with Nakavana. I mean, I'm reading a correspondence here from Inishman, and they're despairing in relation to the process in relation to Oncollamore and the simulation exercises that's going on in the Marine Centre in Cork and so on. Equally, Inisheer have been in contact with us as a representative body, telling us that the funding model under Leader is not going to do anything for the islands and continue the division that has happened up to date, which is not acceptable. I won't go over my time.